Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Glen. What's going on?
Sorry about that, but a couple of our partners on the farm have not paid their taxes yet. Had to have a meeting with those of us who do. It's going to be a tight month if they don't pay.
What do you mean, partners? Like people who live on the farm? Or
No, this farm belongs to 3 women and me.
yeah. Oh, you still have contact with them, right? You still...
So they have not sent in their payment, and therefore going to create a financial problem. In any event, the one I spoke to has, so the other 2 are the ones that are questioned.
How long have you known them? Oh, were they the women in your newspapers?
1998.
Are they're in your newspapers, right?
They've had their picture in the paper, yeah.
How's your relationship with them? Like, as far as like speaking,
it's not something that one discusses.
Oh, okay.
On the radio.
Yeah, all right, I got you. Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I was reading it and I understood everything up to I think it was the last sentence. I don't understand what's Vic's 10 toes. I think I might know what it means.
Vic is from the word Viator. Victor. It's what all of the sports guys wear when they have the check mark for Nike. Nike stands for victory.
Oh. Yeah, and I was doing some Google searches on this guy, Colonel John B. Alexander. He's involved in like mechatronic kind thing. I don't know, you said you wanted him to call you?
I want him to call here. I have to speak with him.
Why?
It's all the investigation that the cell is doing involves those things that happened to Jenny as a child, growing up, and all the way into the 1990s. He has a number of answers what they were doing, Jenny, and why. There is a suggestion that is currently being worked on by a number of investigators with the cell that there is a good possibility that Jennifer was treated the way she was treated, part of an experiment, an ongoing experiment that had begun at McGill University. It was the work of Dr. Wilder Penfield. Memory. So there is a possibility, this stage of the game, name Wilder in Arizona. Wilder came upon the scene because of its relationship to Wilder Penfield. His operations on the brain were to see if one could retrieve memories. Ritual abuse of Jenny dealt with, could you hide memories from the person who was being abused, so that could be used as a messenger, but then not remember anything about the message. People most likely to be involved would have links to Oregon, Montreal. That's Wilder Penfield's background.
How long was McGill University around for?
Well, Penfield's background goes back to the time he was a Rhodes Scholar and everything, and ended up in New York practicing medicine and wanting to do experiments on the brain that were not legal in New York. Then suggested that if he went to Montreal, he would be provided the tools and place to do the job. Royal Neurological Institute, I think is what it's called, built for him. It's in fact CIA, Navy, background, military intelligence. So they did testing with operations and electric shock and everything to define which parts of the brain contain memories. Could you, in fact, and he proved you could, by prodding certain parts of the brain, cause the person to remember they had forgotten. The bonus of it all was that the person did not only remember, the person relived. So all of the emotions, all of the feelings went along with the memories, and it was like watching a movie. This was being done with patients who were awake. They were not put under general anesthetics. They were simply under local anesthetics on the head so they could cut the top of the skull off and access the brain. He retired then about 1950, somewhere between 1950 and 1955. I think he died in 76. He went back west. Quite likely, according to the cell, he had something to do with her birth. May have been that the mother carried the egg and the father inseminated the egg. The egg was not the mother's. Could have been that Penfield himself was the father. In choosing a name at the time, Jenny was having trouble with her husband. Arizona Wilder, came out of the blue, and she doesn't remember the circumstances. More than likely, according to the cell, that this was a recessive memory. That a lot of people might know about this world of politics and hospitals. Maybe why she's being kept unemployed.
Because, so, like, you think those types of people would know how to...
Well, the Grey Nuns would know.
How to unlock...
They may even have participated in the manufacturing.
No, because this seems like this is something that's done with just the brain. So, you think these people would know how to unlock?
Well, the nuns are into genetic engineering babies. Wilder Penfield was more specifically interested
the brain, right?
in finding out whether you could retrieve memories that had been sealed away through ritual abuse, which has been going on for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. The most important thing in their world, the ability to send communications, have those communications deleted, mission impossible, at the end of this tape, and then will self-destruct type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, the ultimate messenger is one that can be programmed with the message, deliver it, and then never be able to remember it or recall it. Penfield was trying to figure out if they caught a Russian spy, he had been programmed not to remember. Could they, in fact, then go through the process and get her to remember him? Now, it all depends which DNA they used unknowingly to them, unknown to some people involved. They could have used DNA that had been used a number of times for experiments over the years. Relationship to the 18th dynasty would be found in there. Anyways, it's a complicated situation. It explains a lot about why Jenny was able to raise the rating the Alzheimer's Institute she worked in to a level of 5-star by the time she got out. Because basically also means that the pain and suffering that she went through gave her an inside look and an empathy for the people who suffer from senility or Alzheimer's that most nurses would never have. as a director of nursing, she could instruct nurses on how to deal with Alzheimer's and let them know exactly what should be expected of the nurses, care given to these patients, to the point where the U.S. government sent in a survey in the month just before she left, the month of June, I think it was. A rating came out after she had resigned. Why? But she got an email from her former boss saying that they had just been notified that their rating was raised to 5-star, and that largely due to the work done over the last 3 years by Jenny. That to me also might indicate that the brains behind Jenny may in fact be Wilder Penfield. He's one of the most famous Canadians, having achieved the highest level in the scientific community. He was made member of the Order of Canada and all
that. What was it that linked Jennifer to Wilder Penfield? Where did you find the link?
The fact that the timing, purpose of Wilder Penfield's experiments all fit. Now, I'm not being given all of the details by the cell. They may have the actual records.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know. Sounds like they may when I'm speaking to them. But even the circumstantial evidence of what he was working on, what she went through, how those two things are linked, how there's a common link through the Navy well in there. The region. He was born in Oregon, and her parents lived in Montana. Mother was either from Wyoming or Nebraska or someplace like that.
What's the Navy?
The father was given a privilege by the military when he was put into the military. He was given a an honorable discharge during boot camp. It means he never even had to serve. Was in their minds doing work more important than being in the military. That may have something to do with raising the family, doing certain things to Jenny, the family doing certain things to Jenny that would be able to be tested later on.
So, like, what's the Navy like? This is what they do. Is this like a lot of what they do?
The Navy is the oldest spy group. I mean, you think of Phoenicians being the old Navy, and them being Lebanese.
Mm-hmm.
They then move and install groups by ruining people all over the world, Aboriginals, in order to create populations who are going to do all of the footwork of investigating the land and that kind of stuff, And then you send in guys like Lewis and Clark, and instead of having to do all that work, they simply have to be introduced to the native people who are placed there. The same way, if you're going to engineer a perfect slave for the future, you want to have the ability to manufacture models along the way and check out as they go along their attachment to the social and genetic engineering that you have provided for them. Is a good possibility that as the first child in that family, she was not really theirs. Usually they use the first or last child, and in my family, was the last child. So they genetically engineer, manufacture either in the lab or use the female as a stepmother type of thing for the birthing process. And the child being raised in a certain environment with the certain genetic engineering that they were given, all those things matter. And then if you start a process, including abuse, not just passing abuse, but ritual abuse, can in fact build memories person by creating multiple personalities, and only that personality knows, so that when you're asked the question, you don't know. Host personality is known as an alter. Has a different name. That personality knows. Now, it would be interesting for a Wilder Penfield to have a walking, talking model from birth.
So
to check out all of his experiments along the way. But he died in 1976. So 1976, Jenny would have been 21. But that doesn't stop the process from continuing. Know that the CIA had links to Cameron. Cameron was just an ongoing continuation of what Wilder Penfield had begun.
So you think
the fact that they kind of engineered the name Wilder, what are the odds someone calling themselves Wilder?
Do you think there's a way for these people to retrieve information from?
Well, if it was Wilder's job, his retrieval would be done surgically. It hasn't been done, but he's no longer there. So,
what do you mean?
But that doesn't mean they didn't continue to try to build all alters within any.
What do you mean, like surgically, like physically take something out?
Well, what his operations were, he would cut the top of the head off, and he would have the patient under local anesthetics so the patient could answer questions.
Yeah.
Then he had this prod that he would go into the brain, touching the different parts of the brain, knowing, first of all, where the memories are stored in a person's brain, and identifying that general area, and then prodding different areas would cause the person to vocalize what they were thinking. If it was a memory and the memory was scary, the person would be afraid. If the memory was happy, the person would be joyful.
So it's like mechanisms. So.
Yeah. So he was able to find different memories in the people he had on the operating table. Therefore, it gave him the idea, since this was all for military purposes, let's see if we could build one from scratch. Then you have the decision on, okay, from our vast inventory of DNA, which DNA do we use? Of course, there's signs that a number of people over the millennia were made from the same DNA. Therefore, they have a background on that DNA and they know what it's all about, and they could go and retrieve it if at first you go through a process of kind of embedding that information in the person that you're going to be working with. So they manufacture a baby, and that gives the genetic engineering and the background. And then they ritually abuse the child, the teenager, the woman, certain ways that have been tested by the military in the past to help retrieve memories or to hide messages.
So when they retrieve the memory, like the person like acts it out or something, like you said, a movie? Like
I don't know which other way than surgery they could retrieve
a memory,
but they may have had a method of retrieval that was known only to certain individuals.
Because I'm thinking, how do you retrieve a memory? Because it's the same, almost like the same concepts.
You may have been through the same things.
What do you mean?
Because you have certain signs in your speech that might reflect that.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, what I mean, I just told you. Signs of the same thing.
Because it's like the same concept with
your method of speech often halts, and you seem to be polling. In other words, you're searching in your brain for who's going to answer the question. That's a sign that you've been through programming. And you may still be in it. I mean, part of the programming is social engineering, and that's your daily life. One stage of the game, it would end. And for a woman, it would add the added thing about, can you pass that on? You be made pregnant without knowing it, be put to sleep and be artificially inseminated, and all of a sudden you're pregnant. And how much of what you knew got passed on to your children?
You know what? Like, maybe you think something like that could have happened to my mother?
Certainly.
And my father would not be aware?
Well, if your father is aware, they made sure he wouldn't be aware at the end. That's, generally speaking, the disease of the knowledgeable people. is called Alzheimer's. That's why you got people like Ronald Reagan aware of too much information, had to be shut down later years when he started to blabber over the place, things he should not speak. Quite possible that your father knew.
Well, like there's a whole side, because you know why it would make it kind of, when I was at the sister's funeral, like all the stories that he would tell me about, his life in Haiti. Like when I spoke to his sister, I spoke to my cousin, his sister's daughter. It's different. It wasn't like that. So it makes me suspect that like there's a lot of things that he's not talking about. That he
Sure,
doesn't want to share.
and it explains why they have, an earthquake followed by. Did they have next hurricane, followed by a revolution? Because cleansing the planet of a number of these people who know too much seems to be behind what's happening all over the world. In Pakistan, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Chile, in Japan. People who know too much are in the way.
And I've been getting I've been getting contacted by somebody from Haiti. They're not related to me by blood, but from my father's mother's husband. She just contacted me out of nowhere, and she's from an area, because she's from the military side, because her husband was like in the military, and she from CAP, IET they call it. I'm curious why they would call it CAP.
Well, Tunisia, Egypt, and now
green. Oh wow.
Libya.
Alibi.
Seems to me to be something orchestrated by a guy whose name contains the word hammer. Oh, Hamar. Gaddafi. And if you put hammer in the word, it means he has last say. Seems to me that they've let him have his own way recently. That way he's exposing everything he has. Then you hit. The Japanese have been involved through the Shinto religion in much of the secrecy in Japan. Fear is that the winds would reverse direction and go south and kill most of the people in Tokyo. That is part of the cleansing. Australia's floods is part of the cleansing. The earthquakes in Christchurch is part of the cleansing. You have to remember that yesterday was big news. Spacecraft called Messenger arrived the closest planet to the sun.
Really?
Mercury.
Oh yeah, they said they would announce it this year.
6-year journey. That's about the same time our Prime Minister's been in office. Mercury and Messenger. Mercury means Mother Superior. Three nuns, Lake Superior. Superior propane. The fifth biggest lake. That number matches fifth dimension.
When they say fifth dimension, what does that mean?
There's something going on here that links all these things together. The ones in the southern hemisphere are cosmetic. People caught in the mine shaft in Chile were rescued. But the ones that happen in the northern hemisphere, thousands and thousands of people die. We ain't seen nothing yet. Imagine what would happen if that
Billions.
blew at the Sioux was flushed, dealing with millions and millions of people. A lot of leaders know what's going on. But what's worse is a lot of clerks know what's going on, and they're making it happen. Affecting the system. And the things that politicians are doing in Canada today as a governing party seem to be designed to cause their loss of the next election. The question is, are they undermining themselves, or is somebody undermining them, half of a third party? At this stage of the game, it looks a lot like the clerks, the executive assistants, the mailroom handlers, the archives, are all being manipulated in a way to show incompetence. Does that mean that they are spies from the other party? That the liberals that kind of train these people and put them in place in the Conservative Party in Canada? That leaking stuff to the press, it's all being done by clerks. There seems to be a connection between the stuff that's being done in the U.S., in England, in Canada, in France, Italy. End product is the leaders really look bad, while the people who are calling for services are getting nothing that resembles services. All you got to do is read the comments put on the net on the topic of trying to immigrate to Canada. How easy it is for Iranians and boat people to get in.
Yeah.
But how difficult it is for an American to get in. And especially how difficult it is for a woman. Most of the people turned around at the border are women.
You know, that's so right, because throughout the years when I used to go to Canada, they would let Somalians, Ethiopians, Jamaicans, Nigerians, a lot of, even at the time with the whole 9/11 thing, I seen there were Islamic people like that came in. A lot of them came in, and there was no problem.
Yeah.
But an American, it's a problem.
Seems as if they are undermining on purpose. I mean, the ministers that are getting biggest whacks these days, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Jason Kenney, Minister of Public Safety, who runs the border guards, the RCMP, prisons, parole board. He's the one who sent Jenny the letter. And obviously, he's writing about something he didn't even read, because he's talking about things that don't even appear in the documents he had. Like, you had the right to appeal, a judicial appeal, if you had taken that right within 15 days.
He was just responding like as procedure, if I even read it, because he probably
responding like he didn't even know.
Yeah,
like they used the signature machine. Somebody typed the letter and put his name on it.
Well, somebody like that, like, to read somebody like that, wouldn't you have to just, like, personally go to his office?
They won't let you in.
Really? All these public servants?
This is, post 9/11. Can't get into government offices anymore. They got security guards all over the place. When I was a kid, I used to wander the halls of Parliament, drop in on any door that was open, see if they had any candy.
Yes. I remember as a kid, I went in Parliament. I don't remember a lot of guards like that. At least.
Yeah. Now you can't even get on the lawn.
Really? Wow. Thanks.
They're kind of put up ropes. The minute you want to be a demonstration, you've got to apply for a permit. That's what they tried to do to me while I was there. Was they tried to have me removed by having me arrested. But every time they take me to court, the judge would say, Mr. Kealey is not a demonstration. Mr. Kealey is a demonstrator. Demonstrator is a single person, and you can't write laws for demonstrations against a single person. Mr. Kealey is a citizen of Canada, and the property on Parliament Hill is his, like it is the property of every other citizen on Parliament Hill. Mm-hmm. And as long as he doesn't band up with anybody else and create a demonstration, you have no right to move him from where he is on Parliament Hill. Happen over and over and over again.
Well, supposedly in theory, like with the government and everything, like in theory, they say all the power is supposedly comes from the people. They say so. Everything in theory would mean you own that property.
Absolutely. That's what they were told by the judges in the trials they tried to hold. Once I was found guilty and it was overturned. Feel can't have laws go against the people's rights. But by that time, they had got me off, sent me to jail, scared away all the other people that might have thought of doing similar things. And I bet you if I go to Parliament Hill today and try to do the same thing as I did when I was there the first time, judges in the courts would say, Mr. Kealey is a demonstration. They would have been ordered upon getting promoted to that post, always take that stand. That's how they fix the problems
Mm.
They make sure the judges know ahead of time.
But see, this is just, it's all logical in the sense that it goes from bad to worse. Can you picture if it was allowed to, if there was no cleansing, it would just be worse and worse. And,
Mm-hmm.
'cause that's the only, Plato said that in the Republic.
Plato said a lot of things. Most of them were wrong.
Yeah.
But he said a few very important things to establish his role as a philosopher.
Yeah. Well, he said that democracy will only end up one way.
There's no such thing as democracy. It means the mob.
Yeah.
You know?
But I'm finding many definite.
And there's no logical government of a mob. And it's just a way to hide the fact that the media and the ecclesiastics are in charge.
But you know what? It's not even just democracy, because you could look in fascism,
communism.
Media runs the show.
It's a circle.
Yeah.
It's not a flat line with communists at one end and fascists at the other, and Democrats in the middle. Yeah. It's a circle. Fascism and communism is exactly the same thing. The only difference is who's in charge. In communism, it's the bureaucrats. In fascism, it's the military. Their way of functioning is exactly the same thing. Democracy, on the other hand, is the opposite. It's hypocrisy. That's why doctors take a Hippocratic oath. That's why the country of France is shaped like the head of a hippopotamus. Who rules any democratic country? In the background, behind both of them, who keep the archives, guns and the clerks.
And I see what you were saying, like with Semites in the media, like, because I've been analyzing that media for a while, and I see that. Like, there's one guy, like, they just play roles. Like, I was on my job, and there's this poster of some guy who does a commercial for a beer called Dos Equis. He does like a Spanish accent, and somebody in there was like, he's like, I looked up this guy. This guy's not even Spanish, man. He's like Jewish. And I was like, what? And there's another time I remember on the news, supposedly this Al Qaeda terrorist guy, came out with a video, speaking out against Westerners. And then it came out later on that that guy was actually like a rabbi or something, and he was just playing a role. It's the good actors, man.
I gotta go now, Jared. So.
Yeah. Okay, Glenn.
I'll talk to you again sometime.
All right. Bye.
Sorry for being late.
Yeah, no problem. I figured you had something. Okay.